StarCraft, the Protoss, when you got units.
Gotcha.
Now you're going to have
in.
to click again because that completely is a total non sequitur. It's like broken.
Hello and welcome to JudgeCast. This is episode 351. I'm one of your hosts, Bryan, and I am joined this evening, afternoon, morning drive to work by the one and only Charles Feather.
Hello.
And the one and only Marco Sanchez.
No one can hear you in space.
Fair.
What? Oh, so this is going to be a real boring podcast then if it's just silence the whole time.
Hello, everybody.
Hello. Yes, it's just going to be 90 minutes of me breathing into the microphone.
I saw that movie once. It wasn't bad.
What?
What movie was that?
I don't want to know.
I don't know. I'm sure there was something done.
I'm sure it's not safe for work
ASMR.
Either. Yes. All right. Well, guess what? It's only been 6 weeks since the last set, so I guess that means it's time for a release notes episode.
Yay!
We're probably overdue at this point.
Yes. Yes. In space sets, no one can hear you scream. Yeah. So it's a space set, Edge of Eternities. This is our Edge of Eternities release notes.
Sound a little more excited, Bryan.
All right. Oh, you want excitement? All right. What is it that we do here? Merchandising, where the real money from the podcast is made. Space Set the t-shirt, Space Set the coloring book, Space Set the lunchbox, Space Set the breakfast cereal, Space Set the flamethrower. The kids are gonna love this one. Was that exciting enough for you?
Yes.
I just want the bumper sticker.
Blatant ripoff.
Yeah. All right. So, Edge of Eternities. It's coming out soon, and hope you're all excited for it. And if you aren't, what is it? Excitement will continue until
morale improves.
Morale improves.
Yeah.
Yes. All right, folks. With the release of Edge of Eternities, there is going to be a standard rotation. All right, this is our first rotation in a hot minute. And with the release of Edge of Eternities on August 1st, we're going to lose some sets. All right, Dominaria United, not in standard anymore. Neither is Brothers War, Phyrexia All Will Be One, March of the Machines, or March of Machines Aftermath. Okay, so we're going to start with Wilds of Eldraine and go all the way forward. And we're not going to have another rotation until February of 2027. Whoa.
Yay.
Yay. All right. Edge of Eternity cards with the EOE set code are going to be allowed in standard, pioneer, and modern formats, as well as commander and others as soon as they hit. So as soon as you can have the cards, they are going to be playable. At the release, the following cards sets will be permitted in the standard format. We're going to start with Magic the Gathering Foundations, Wild of Eldraine, Lost Caverns of Ixalan, Murders of Karlov Manor, Outlaws of Thunder Junction, The Big Score, Bloomburrow, Duskmourn, Aether Drift, Tarkir, and Final Fantasy. Woot woot.
What's old is new again.
Yeah, so with a new set comes new mechanics, and what's the big headlining mechanic for this set? I've already talked a lot. I should probably hand this over to someone else.
Spaceships! Much hype. This is actually kind of cool. Some people are a little iffy on it. I have no idea how it's going to play, but we now officially have spaceships in Magic in the new artifact subtype, which is spacecraft. Now, the spacecraft as a subtype of artifact doesn't actually have any actual real rules meaning, like how on a land, if you give it the subtype planes, it gives it the rules meaning of tap to add a white mana. Spacecraft don't do none of that. It's just a subtype of an artifact. It doesn't give you any special abilities. However, there are some cards in the set that do care about which of your artifacts are spacecraft, so keep an eye out for that, I guess.
Okay, so what is it? What is a spacecraft thematically, though?
It's basically a vehicle that's in space, but different because it uses plasma and energy and all the woo, 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 things that you find in all your favorite Star Traveler media.
What kind of things?
Woo, 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 woo. We gotta have fun somehow, kids. So, for example, actually, let's just look at some of these cards. So we have Lumen Class Frigate for 1 and a white. It is an artifact spacecraft, and it has Station, which is an aspect of the spacecraft subtype. Station, and it has helpful reminder text. Tap another creature you control. Put charge counters equal to its power on this spacecraft. Station, only as a sorcery. It's an artifact creature at 12+. And if you're looking at the card, which if you're watching on our YouTube channel, you're seeing the card right now, it has 2 little circles with numbers and a plus sign in the circles. The first of these, and actually, I'm also going to point out, this is what they call a striated card, where you see like little blocks of shading showing different sections on the card. The first striated section has a 2 and a plus in a circle, and it says, other creatures you control get +1/+1.
Just as a vibe, if you've been around for a while, then you've probably already watched YouTube videos on what this mechanic is. But thematically, it's like a cross between vehicles and the old level up cards.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I forgot about those level up cards.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Going way back to... Was that really that... Oh, goodness. I don't even want to think
Yes,
how long ago that was. Moving on, anyways.
It was that long ago.
There's more to the card. There's also a 12+, and it says Flying Lifelink, and then it has a power and toughness box of 3/5. So let's talk a little bit more about station as a keyword. So the station keyword means that you can tap another untapped creature you control to put a number of charge counters on this permanent equal to the tapped creature's power. And again, you activate this only as a sorcery. So to power up your space station, you have to charge it up either over time or with a really big creature, like a dinosaur. Dinosaurs in space. One of my favorite Doctor Who episodes. Anyways, as this can only be activated as a sorcery, that means that you can't station in response to a spell or station during your declare attacker step like you can crew with vehicles. Now, we talked a little bit about how you recognize station cards. They all have these little striation boxes, and those numbers just show how many charge counters you need to have on the spacecraft to have it gain whatever is in that section of the rules text. So on this card, as long as you have 2 or more charge counters on it, the other creatures you control get +1/+1 is an ability that is on this card. Until it gets those charge counters, it doesn't have that ability. Same with 12+, it gets flying and lifelink and becomes a creature and gains that power and toughness of 3/5. And also we have Atmospheric Greenhouse. For 4 and a green, it is an artifact spacecraft that says, when the spacecraft enters, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control and station. And it has that little darker green box that has an 8 in a circle with a little plus sign next to it, with the words flying, trample, and 5/4 in a power and toughness text box. From there, when you tap a creature to station your spacecraft, you're going to use its power as it is when the station ability resolves. So for example, if you use a Colossal Dreadmaw to station your Atmospheric Greenhouse, and your opponent dismembers it in response, you'll only actually station for 1 power and add 1 charge counter onto it when the ability resolves. If the creature is gone, then you're going to use its last known information as it last existed on the battlefield. And if for some reason you tap a creature that ends up with negative power to station, it actually doesn't add any charge counters to the spacecraft, and it doesn't remove any charge counters either. It just goes, well, that was kind of pointless, and moves on.
All right, so just to reiterate what Marco said, is there's a lot of templating on the card to make things easy to understand. But underneath the rules in each striation box is, as long as this permanent has 8 or more charge counters on it, it has blah. where N is the number of symbols. And then if it's got a power and toughness in the boxes, it has an ability that says, as long as this permanent has N or more charge counters, it has abilities and is a creature with base power and toughness in addition to its other types. Okay, so what that's going to mean ultimately is it's not when you get, say, 12 counters on something and now it becomes a creature. That's not the timestamp of that ability was when the card entered the battlefield, not when it got the counters, because the ability is always on the card. It just doesn't turn on until you get a certain number of counters. Okay? If another effect causes a permanent with station to become a creature through some means other than having charge counters on it, then it won't refer to the power and toughness values printed on the station ability text boxes. Okay, this is different from vehicles. If I have an artifact and I make it an artifact creature somehow, it's got those printed values in the corner, and suddenly it becomes active. Not the case with artifacts with station. Okay, hopefully it's going to give, turning that artifact into creatures, that effect gives it a power and toughness, because if it doesn't, you've got undefined, and it's gonna be put in the graveyard for having 0 toughness. If another permanent becomes a copy of a station card, all of its printed abilities, including the ones represented the station symbols, are copied. Okay, its current characteristics and number of charge counters, though, are not copied. All right, so if I make a copy of Dawnsire Sunstar Dreadnought and it's got 10 counters, my original Sunstar Dreadnought's got 20 counters on it, I make a copy, my copy's not going to have any counters. Oh, hey, Marcos, did you mention that station, while it is thematically tied to spacecraft, it's not exclusive to spacecraft?
Not yet. Spoilers.
Oh, okay. Well then, I won't mention that. What I will mention is station cards gain abilities based on the number of charge counters on them. So if you somehow get charge counters on the permanent in ways other than tapping creatures, like proliferating or moving charge counters around, that counts. All right. So you don't have to use the station ability to power up your station. You can do that other ways.
Like standing around and going, whoop, 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 whoop.
I mean, that might work. You could also try shooting tachyons out of the Bussard collector. Yes.
This episode is going to be so much nonsense.
Yep, it is going to be a lot of nonsense. All right, speaking of nonsense, you can have more charge counters on it than what you need for its highest ability. You're not going to get anything extra or bonuses. There's no extra credit. There's no OT pay for it. But you can have 100 counters on your Dawnsire Sunstar Dreadnought for whatever reason. All right. And here's the thing. If you are somehow able to station up your spacecraft... Oh, jeez, Magic is so weird now. If you're able to station up your spacecraft or man it or person it or whatever... the same turn that it entered the battlefield or under your control, you're not going to be able to attack with it, because once it becomes a creature, is it summoning sick? Is your station summoning? Is your spacecraft summoning sick? Yep, I don't know.
I just want to applaud both of you for your willpower at not saying station, or what is it? How does he say it? He says station.
Willpower
for not
Green Lantern.
No,
Green Lantern or something.
No. Station.
I thought you were going with Wheaton power, but
no.
Okay.
Well, that's good too. We like that one.
I don't get the reference.
Will Wheaton.
Well, the reason I don't know why yelling station is
station. Did you not see Bill and Ted?
I did see the first Bill and Ted.
You see the second one?
I have not seen the second.
Oh, I'm so sad now.
I was just trying to segue. Okay, so this is the thing. We crossed segues because I was trying to make like an Oa, not Oa. What's that living planet that's a green Lantern?
Yes.
Oh.
Anyway, and you were making a Bill and Ted. So
Bill
we
and
got
Ted.
our nerds crossed. I hate it when
We
my
get
Schwartz
Schwartz
gets twisted.
crossed. Yeah.
Yes.
We can always bring it back to the Schwartz.
Yes.
All right. So planets. Planets are a lot of fun. For example, today we have Earthros, whatever. Titanic God Core, which is this big cloud looking thing. It is a land with the planet subtype, and it has the text, this land enters tapped. Tap, add 1 blue mana. It has station, and it has, for its station ability, 12 plus, you can pay 1 blue and tap it and add blue mana for each artifact you control, which is kind of cool. So, planets. Planet's a new land subtype, similar to how a spaceship is an artifact subtype. Similar to spacecraft, planet as a subtype has no inherent rules meaning. It's just not that special, kids. It's just a land subtype. Kind of like towns, only, planets.
Bigger.
Everything we just said about spacecraft, and it was a lot of things we said about spacecraft, and station cards are the same with planets, except none of the planets with stations have power and toughness in their station boxes. So none of them, to date, turn into a living planet that can eat other worlds. Are they saving it for later, or do they just not know how to do it, or they're just afraid of the power of the unbelievably large planet with power and toughness? I don't know.
I think it's the power and toughness, because let's be real.
The toughness would be like 1 million.
Right. It's a planet.
You get into a fight with a planet, you're going to lose.
I don't know. I mean,
You should.
You don't have to look that far back in Magic history to find planets that have lost.
Fair.
Really?
Yeah, didn't Mirrodin
Like, are
or
you
something
talking
like that?
Mirrodin?
Yeah.
New Phyrexia.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really just the. Oh,
I mean, it happened.
yeah.
So anyway, we have these big, giant, unique planets that, by the way, they aren't legendary. I mean, seriously, not legendary. I think there's a whole Mark Rosewood or Tumblr post or something about why they don't make lands legendary anymore, or why they're loath to do so. But it's not legendary, so whatever.
Yeah. It's gameplay reasons.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And our next mechanic is a new mechanic called Warp, which might evoke some familiarity to some of you all out there. Wink. So, we have 2 examples for this. First off is Memorial Team Leader. For 3 and a red, this is a creature Kavu Soldier for 3 that says, during your turn, other creatures you control get +1/+0. And it has the ability Warp for 1 and a red. And the handy reminder text, you may cast this card from your hand for its warp cost. Exile this creature at the beginning of the next end step. Then you may cast it from exile on a later turn.
What?
Oh, yeah. Space evoke.
So it pops up, disappears, and pops up again. Awesome.
I mean, it's kind of awesomely flavored. I kind of love it, actually.
It's a little clever, yeah.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one. We also have Starbreach Whale, the biggest space whale you've ever seen. That is, of course, only a 3/5. We on JudgeCast do care about the size of whales, just saying. For 4 and a blue, this is a creature whale 3/5 flying. When this creature enters, surveil 2, and it has warp for 1 and a blue.
Does seem kind of small to be something called a star breach whale.
What kind of star are you breaching?
It's much smaller than it actually looks. It really is. It's just the size of a large camel. I don't know.
It's the Segovian
Segovian space.
Sfigovia, however it's pronounced. Anyway,
so warp is an alternate casting cost. If you choose to cast a spell for its warp cost rather than its mana cost printed in the top right, you are still casting the spell. It goes on the stack. It can be countered, it can be interacted with, etc. It's just a normal spell. You're just using a different casting cost in order to cast it. Casting it for its warp cost doesn't change when you can cast a spell, so normal timing restrictions apply. It's just a different cost. And if you pay the warp cost, it actually sets up a delayed trigger in the game where that permanent will be exiled if it's still on the battlefield when that triggered ability resolves. If it goes to another zone before then it's just going to stay where it is. If it gets exiled some other way, its owner won't be able to cast it in a future turn from exile through the warp ability. So it's that warp triggered ability that sets up at the end of turn that will let you cast it from exile on a later turn. In that, it's actually really important of a distinction because a lot of us are used to how things like flashback works, where this is a kind of temporary thing, and then if it were to go anywhere else, nope, it just poofs and goes into exile. Not the case for this. You can warp and then you can blink it, or you can warp it and then kill it and it just goes to the graveyard. Very similar to those evoke creatures. Basically just that, only it goes to exile instead of the graveyard and lets you cast it again later on. Pretty neat.
The next mechanic that we're going to talk about isn't a mechanic at all, really. It's an ability word, and as we all know, ability words don't exist, like birds. Anyway, Tragic Trajectory is a black sorcery that costs 1 black that says target creature gets -2/-2 until end of turn. Void, that creature gets -10/-10 until end of turn instead if a non-land permanent left the battlefield this turn or a spell was warped this turn. Okay, so Void is an ability word. It just serves to group similarly themed rules text together, and it just highlights when a card cares about a non-land permanent leaving the battlefield or if a spell was warped. Ability words, again, as we said, don't have any rules meaning. When a Void card checks to see if a spell was warped this turn, the rule only cares if the spell was successfully cast with its warped ability, not whether or not it resolved or was countered. All right? So you warped a card if you cast it for its warped cost, regardless of what actually happens after you successfully cast it. All right? Now, let's talk about timing a little bit. For a spell like Tragic Trajectory, the Void clause is being checked on resolution, meaning that we can cast the spell targeting a creature. While it's on the stack, we sack something, and then the spell resolves. When the spell does resolve, the target's going to get -10/-10. Okay? However, there are going to be some Void abilities that are triggered abilities with intervening if clauses. If the leave the battlefield /void condition isn't true when those would trigger, it's not going to trigger at all. All right. Even if a creature died between when the Void ability would be put on the stack and when it would resolve, okay, because of intervening if clauses, it's not going to work out that way. It's got to be true both in order to trigger and it's got to be true in order to at the time of resolving. Although I can't really think of a time or a situation where the fact that a spell was warped would make it past the first intervening if clause and not the second. So really it's just a situation where it's got to be true when the trigger would go on the stack.
Makes sense.
Yep.
Lander, hardly newer. We have a Lander token.
You're not going to make an Anlanders reference? We are old.
We are old, but I thought the Lander hardly newer would be pretty good. Okay, so
that's a great one.
Yeah, I thought so. We have a Lander token, and it's a token artifact Lander with 2 and tap, sacrifice this token, search your library for a basic land card, then put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. So it's a new predefined token, kind of like food. These are colorless token artifacts with the subtype Lander and come with the ability that I just read to you. Some spells or abilities that create Lander tokens require targets. So if each target chosen is illegal when the spell or ability goes to resolve, the entire ability won't resolve and you won't create the Lander token. So sad, too bad. We also have some very exciting news. There's a rules change for commander players, or if you're really old, EDH, or you just like using the letters instead of calling it commander. I'm not to judge. So now you can have legendary spacecraft and legendary vehicles as your commanders, not just, legendary creature. So that's neat. But that's not all. The specific rule is if a legendary vehicle or a spacecraft has a power and toughness printed on the card, it can be a commander, because sure, why not? Neat.
Oddly specific.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's future proofing for 5 sets from now. I don't know.
Probably.
Yeah. And on to card specific notes.
Even more specific. All right. So this time we're going to start off with Adagia Windswept Bastion. It is a mythic rare land planet. It says this land enters tapped. Tap to add a white. It has station with a station icon of 12 plus, which grants the ability 3 and a white. Tap. Create a token that's a copy of target artifact or enchantment you control, except it's legendary. Activate only as a sorcery. And we're hitting the ground running with copying effects. So the created token copies what was printed on the original permanent and nothing else. No statuses, no counters that were on it, nothing. Unless for some reason it's copying a copy of something else or it's a token. It won't copy anything else like auras, equipment attached to it, none of that. It's like every copy effect, it is a Xerox. If you don't know what that is, ask your parents. Just copies what's on the card and nothing else. If the copied permanent is a token, it copies only the original characteristics of that token as defined by the effect that created it, with the exception as previously noted. If the copied permanent was a copy of something else, then the token enters as whatever was copied by the permanent, exceptions all aside, because those are now its copyable characteristics. Any enters abilities on the copied permanent will trigger because you are creating a token that does enter the battlefield. If Adagia's ability creates a token that's a copy of a non-legendary artifact or enchantment, only the new token will be legendary. Since the names will be the same, but only one of them will be legendary, nothing goes to the graveyard as a result of state-based actions. The legend rule only cares if you have 2 permanents on the battlefield that are both legendary and both share the same name. And if Adagia creates a token that's a copy of an aura, you choose what to attach it to as it enters the battlefield. This effect does not target, so it will get around things like hexproof or shroud. You can attach it to your opponent's hexproof creature, no problem. If the permanent receiving the aura has protection from a value of the aura, can't be enchanted, and a different permanent must be chosen. If there are no legal permanents, the aura token is just not created. And also on top of that, it is still limited by its enchant ability. So if it says enchant creature, you can't just slap it on a non-creature artifact. It has to follow that enchant ability.
All right, next up, we're going to talk about All Fates Stalker, which is 3 and a white. This is a pretty cool card. Almost enough to make me overlook the fact that this set symbol looks like the Grok logo. Anyway, it's 3 and a white for a 2/3 creature Drix Assassin. Okay? It says when this creature enters, exile up to 1 target non-assassin creature until this creature leaves the battlefield. And then it has warp, 1 and a white. So first note is this is an ability that has a duration, okay? It ends or it lasts until this creature leaves the battlefield. So if All Fate Stalker leaves the battlefield before the first ability resolves, that creature's not going to be exiled. We have a situation where the duration ended before the ability started. In those cases, we just don't do nothing. All right? When you exile the creature, that non-assassin creature, any auras attached to that creature, the creature exiled by All Fates are going to go to their opponent's graveyard. Equipment's going to fall off, but stay on the battlefield. Counters, hey, we're changing zones, so counters aren't going to stick around. When the card is returned to the battlefield, it's a new object, no recollection of what and where it was before. And if you target a token with this, the token's going to leave the battlefield and cease to exist the next time state-based actions are checked. I really like this card, though, because the warp ability kind of gives another way to flicker or at least temporarily, because it's going to warp in and then it's going to exile at the beginning of your end step. So you can, like, quickly you can use it to flicker your own thing, and then later you can pay the 4 mana to basically exile one of your opponent's things. I like it. I don't really know why it's target non-assassin. I don't think that's actually flavor. I think that might actually be more of a, like, they're trying to prevent loops, like if in constructed or limited or something like that, if you get like a bunch of all fate stalkers, you might create a little loop.
Yeah.
I
Like
thought
the Journey to Nowhere, Leonin loop.
I thought it was just professional courtesy.
I mean, it might be. They might have the Drix assassin might have been trying to kill 2 birds with 1 stone.
There we go. Another card here. Hold on a second.
Yep, say that word. Whatever it is.
We have, I don't know. We have Alpha Rail. We have Alpha Rail Dreaming Alkalite. For 1 black and a blue is a 2/3 legendary creature human cleric. And when Alpha Rail enters, draw 2 cards, then discard 2 cards unless you discard an artifact card. And during your turn, Alpha Rail has Death Touch. So this card's neat for one reason. So when it enters, you draw 2 cards, right? Then when you discard a card, you have to discard 2 cards unless you discard an artifact. But it doesn't preclude you from discarding 2 artifacts. The way that it's written, it doesn't restrict that. So if you really want to dump artifacts in your graveyard, Alpha Rail is your Alkalite. He's the guy. He's the one that's going to do it for you. Cool.
Real cool. Now, what else is real cool? The art on this next card, which is Astelli Reclaimer. For 3 white, it is a 5/4 creature angel warrior with flying. And it says, when this creature enters, return target non-creature, non-land permanent card with mana value X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield, where X is the amount of mana spent to cast this creature. And it has Warp, 2, and a white. So this is actually a really neat card. And again, Warp is such a cool flavor mechanic here. So Astelli's triggered ability cares about what the amount of mana that you spent to cast it was. So if, for example, you have a cost increase or a cost decrease for casting it, then that makes a difference and factors into the calculation of X. For example, if you're casting it for its warp cost, well, you only spent 3 mana to do that, so X will be 3. As opposed to when you cast it for its full cost of 5, then X would be 5.
Can I ask a question that's not in our notes here?
Sure.
What if I somehow have Astelli Reclaimer, they have Convoke, or I'm somehow able to pay for it using Phyrexian mana and I choose to pay life instead? How does that interact?
Fantastic question. Not well, unfortunately.
Okay.
Yeah, so it specifically says the amount of mana spent to cast this creature. And what that really means is how much mana did you pay from your mana pool to cast this creature? Not did you choose to pay Phyrexian mana, not how many creatures did you tap. It's specifically mana you paid. Now, that does have a couple of complications on it. For example, if a copy of Astelli ends up on the stack with no mana spent to cast it, well, then X is 0, because, again, you didn't pay in any of that mana. If an effect lets you cast Astelli for free, or without paying its mana cost, then again, X is 0, because you didn't pay for it. Interestingly, if an effect requires you to pay mana to prevent it from being countered, so think of like a Syncopate style effect, or a Mana Leak style effect, that additional mana that you paid doesn't count towards X. That mana was paid to pay the cost for another spell or ability that was resolving, not to cast this creature. And if a card in your graveyard has X in its cost, then X is 0 for the purpose of determining mana value for this creature's ability. Pretty neat.
Now, what about, I'm going to ask another question. What about modal double face cards?
Ooh, are you asking what the mana value of a modal double face card is?
I'm asking when this creature enters, return target non-creature, non-land permanent card with mana value X or less. So if the back is a non-creature, non-land permanent card,
But the front is, let's say, a land.
sure.
Yeah. Also, not going very well for you.
I'm doing terrible this episode
Yep.
in
We don't.
asking questions. I keep getting disappointed.
Sad days. Once again, JudgeCast motto: we do not play well. We play by the rules.
Yeah. Now, if I was going to change things, if I was going to bioengineer a future, I'd allow it. I'd start with the laser beam, day one.
Excellent.
8 a.m. day one. All right.
On the Sharks, right?
That was a Time Bandit reference. Anyway, bioengineered future. One green. The whole reason for the JudgeCast podcast is so that I can make references from movies that haven't been in theaters in 40 years.
By the way, go watch Time Bandits. It's great.
Is
it?
It doesn't hold up, but it's great.
It does not hold up.
It's great.
It's like 30% good and 70% nostalgia. And if you were seeing it for the first time, you have no nostalgia whatsoever.
That's fair.
Anyway, one green for an enchantment. When this enchantment enters, create a lander token. Or you could create the sister token, the Abbey token. Because Ann Landers and Dear Abby were sisters.
Wow.
That's a real fact that I looked up for this joke. Anyway, each creature you control enters with an additional +1/+1 counter on it for each land that entered the battlefield under your control this turn. Okay, this card's last ability, the one that I just read, will see lands that entered the battlefield during your turn, even if they came in before Bioengineered Future did. So if you played a forest and a plains before Bioengineer came in, then after that, a creature you control enters, it's going to enter with 2 +1/+1 counters on it. Okay? Now, if Bioengineered Future enters simultaneously with other creatures, since it's not already on the battlefield, it doesn't see those creatures entering, and those creatures will not benefit from this effect. All right? Because the Bioengineered Future, that last ability, is a replacement effect. Okay? Not a trigger. It's not a trigger. Say it with me.
Everything's a trigger.
No.
Ooh, I made it bad.
Yeah. Everything's a predefined artifact token. Everything's
Actually, yeah,
vehicles.
kinda.
Everything's vehicles now. Planets are vehicles. Spaceships are vehicles. Even saddle creatures are vehicles. Everything's a vehicle.
I thought, that's great, but I thought that this set was a space set and not a Marvel set.
Are you making
Thank
it?
you. Thank
Yep.
you, Marcos.
Yep,
I appreciate it.
I got there.
Thank you.
That's because I can look ahead. Viewers,
No.
I'll make sure that you have
He's
that
making
as
a Daywalker reference. I understand.
So the next card is Blade of the Swarm. It's not the Marvel Blade. It's just, Blade of the Swarm.
Oh, we're not talking about the Marvel character Swarm?
Or that one either.
Also, yes.
Okay. All right.
That was a Marvel twofer.
Wow. Blade of the Swarm for 3 and a black is a 3/1 creature insect assassin. Ooh, an assassin. And it has when this creature enters, choose one. Option A is put 2 +1/+1 counters on this creature. Or option 2 is put target exile card with warp on the bottom of its owner's library. So Blade of the Swarm does not care how a card with warp found its way into exile, just that it's there. Any card with warp that's currently in exile can be the target of the second ability, so long as it is there, sitting in your exile pile all alone and sad, or together with other warp cards. I don't know. I don't judge.
That's interesting. Not many cards actually let you pull something out of exile like that.
And it doesn't care how it got there or why. Yeah. It's neat.
Yeah. Very cool. Speaking of Marvel characters, now we have Corral of the Void. And for Corral of the Void, that is a enchantment aura for 3 and a black that has enchant creature you control. Whenever enchanted creature attacks, put target creature card from defending player's graveyard onto the battlefield under your control, tapped and attacking. and it has the ability Void. At the beginning of your end step, sacrifice this aura unless a non-land permanent left the battlefield this turn or a spell was warped this turn. So here we have to remind you, when you put the target creature on the battlefield tapped and attacking, you choose who or what it is attacking at that time. So player, planeswalker, battle, you get to choose. And it doesn't have to be the same thing that the creature with the Coral of the Void aura or any other creature you controlled was attacking. It's just whatever you feel like in the moment. Follow your heart. And abilities that look for when creatures are declared as attacking won't react to target creature card you pull from defending player's graveyard and put onto the battlefield under your control attacking. You didn't actually perform the step in this case of declaring it as an attacker. It just showed up ready to rumble, attacking, looking for somebody to punch.
All right. Next up is Code Cracker Hound. For 2 and a blue, it's a creature dog. That's 2/1 that has the ability, when this creature enters, look at the top 2 cards of your library, put 1 into your hand and the other into your graveyard. And it's got warp for 2 and a blue. All right. Not a lot to say a whole lot about this one other than, like, let's just say you're down to only 1 card in your library. Yeah. Again, Rules Podcast, we're not telling you how to live your lives. Like, the number of times you're going to be down to 1 card and decide to cast Code Cracker Hound is going to be relatively low. But if there's a card, if there's 1 card, okay, you're going to take that card and it tells you to look at the top 2 cards, put 1 into your hand and the other into the graveyard. This is a template we've seen similar stuff with, like, Manifest Dread, where it's like, do something to 1 and then the other goes here. All right. In this particular case, you are putting that 1 card into your hand if there's only 1 card left, and then the other card is just whatever's left. And in this particular case, there's nothing left, so you don't get to pick. So if you've only got 1 card, it's going to go into your hand. And I've talked entirely too long about this card.
You know what I love about space sets? We get space goifs. I mean, you know, this really is a magic-based space set because we've got Cosmogoyf. For black and a green, it is a star/1+star creature elemental Lurgoyf. This creature's power is equal to the number of cards you own in exile, and its toughness is equal to that number +1. So the reason we bring this up is because Cosmogoyf has what we call a characteristic defining ability. Characteristic defining ability sets its power and toughness in all zones. So your Cosmogoyf could be sitting in the graveyard. You could have 2 or maybe 3 cards. Let's say 3 cards in exile that are there, maybe because you've got some warp cards and maybe you exiled something. So 3 cards in exile. So Cosmogoyf sitting in the graveyard, its power is 3 and its toughness is 4 because it's it's star/star +1. So power and toughness of 3, 4. Neat. We like characteristic defining abilities. They're fun to talk about.
Yeah. Also, this card makes it so that we kind of have the modern Jund deck from like 5-10 years ago, just kind of in standard. We have a Goyf, we have Dark Confidant, all in standard. Like, we're playing modern from 10 years ago, just in standard. It's kind of awesome.
You play standard with Cosmogoyf. I want to see it.
Bet. Let's go.
Yeah.
So, our next card here is Cosmogrand Zenith. Because we're in space, we have to add the word Cosmo into just about everything.
That's how you know it's space related.
Absolutely. It's the universal space indicator. Is that redundant? I don't know. Anyways, Cosmogrand Zenith for 2 and a white is a 2/4 creature human soldier with the ability, whenever you cast your second spell each turn, choose 1. Create 2 1/1 white human soldier creature tokens, or put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. So Cosmogrand Zenith's ability will count any of the spells that you've cast during the turn, including Cosmogrand Zenith itself. It just cares that you've cast your second spell for the turn overall. If Cosmogrand Zenith is your second spell for the turn, then it's not going to trigger because it has to be on the battlefield to see that spell in order to trigger. The trigger for casting your second spell for your turn will actually resolve before the spell that you cast that triggered it. Particularly, this can matter if, let's say, your second spell for the turn is a creature, and you choose the second mode, and the second spell you cast enters the battlefield. Well, it's not going to get that +1/+1 counter that all your other friends got, well, because it showed up too late to the party. Sad days.
All right. Next up, man, I had Code Cracker Hound, and now I've got Dock Worker Drone. I'm the working class man's cards, blue collar all the way for me. This is the Dock Worker Drone is 1 and a white for an artifact creature robot. It's that there's a robot. It's a 1/1. This creature enters the battlefield with +1/+1 counter on it, and then when this critter here dies, put its counters on target creature you control. So that's second ability. It says put its counters on target creature you control. I know that when we read that, we think that like, okay, it's got a counter on it. I'm going to pick that physical counter up and put it on the target creature. That's not actually what happens. What that means is it doesn't move the counters. When you're instructed to put its counters on target creature, you're basically going to look at the counters that are on it, on the thing, and then you're going to just add counters of that same type on that permanent. Okay? And if you have multiple cards that work with counters, like say the Ozolith that says, when something dies, put its counters, you're actually going to end up doubling up the counters. Okay? Because you're not actually moving the physical counters. You're just mechanically creating other instances of those counters on the creature. Now, this Dock Worker here, it says when this creature dies, put its counters on target creature you control. Doesn't say it's +1/+1 counters. It's any counters. If it's got -1/-1 counters, if it's got verse counters, if it's got charge counters, Again, talked more about this card than it's worth.
Wow. So, wow. I'm looking at this card and I'm just trying to figure out what's going on with it. The art is interesting. The card that I have is the Dominion Bracelet. It costs 2 generic mana. And it has legendary artifact equipment and the text box. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 and has, for 15 mana, exile the Dominion Bracelet. You control target opponent during their next turn. This ability costs X less to activate, where X is this creature's power. Activate only as a sorcery. And it has the kind equip cost of just 1, because it's going to make you pay 15 to get the special effect off of it. So the cost of the ability granted to the creature is locked in before the costs are paid. That's relatively easy. Costs are calculated by adding cost increases, then subtracting cost reductions, and so on. But this card brings up an interesting thing that we rarely get to see in standard legal sets these days, and that's controlling another player. And kind listener, if you get to do this in a limited format, I want to hear about it. Please tell me the story. But let's talk about controlling another player. When you control a player, they're still the active player that is taking their turn. You are still the non-active player. You make all choices and decisions for your opponent. You also control their turn and end playing both sides of the game, going back and forth with the typical priority passes, etc. So because you're still the non-active player, if there's some kind of an effect where, let's say it's one of those wonderful everybody gets to make a choice type effects that are popular in Commander, and we worry about who goes first and not active player, non-active player turn order. Remember, when you cast the spell as the active player controlling them, you're still the non-active player, so you're going to have to make a choice probably earlier than you would expect. You make all choices and decisions that the player is prompted to make or is told to make during the turn, including what spells to cast, what abilities to activate, any decisions, how to attack, etc. You only control the player. You don't gain control of any objects or permanents the player controls. So you can't, just steal their equipment or take one of their creatures and put it on your side of the battlefield. They still control them. You also don't gain access to their resources for yourself. And you can't provide your own resources to do things for your opponent, like pay mana costs and so forth. Don't cross the mana streams. Got it? When you control the player, you can't make them concede the game because you want to win. They can concede the game at any time if you're controlling them. And you can't review their sideboard while controlling them. But I gotta wonder, what about wishes? I mean, we don't have wishes currently in standard, but if another wish effect comes in, could you actually look at the sideboard? I would think so.
No.
No?
No.
Not for a wish effect?
Nope.
No.
Wow, that's neat. Okay. You can't make choices for the player in a tournament, like whether to draw or whether they call a judge. You can see other hidden info of theirs, like face down cards, morph, etc., their hand, but only if they would normally have access to it. You can't just pick up their library and scope it out. So I think somewhere in this card review today, we have one where a card allows the player to look at the top of their library. If you're controlling the player, you can look at the top card of their library at that time, if the card's in play. If the targeted player skips their next turn, you take control of the next one they would actually take. This card's neat. It's bonkers. I can't wait to hear somebody actually pull it off.
You know what that looks like? It reminds me of whatever that Yu-Gi-Oh accessory is that people just like strap to their arms and have cards on. No idea what it's for or how it works, but I know I've seen it in pictures, so
It's
it's a thing.
it is in fact a thing. What else is a thing is our next card, the Exalted Sunborn. For 3 white, we have a 4/5 creature angel wizard with flying and lifelink, and the ability, if one or more tokens would be created under your control, twice that many of those tokens are created instead. And it has warp for 1 and a white. Now, everything about the tokens being created by the original effect will still be true about the additional copies that you're creating with this replacement effect. So for example, if you create a token that is entering the battlefield tapped and attacking, then the additional tokens will also be both tapped and attacking. If the effect creates a token and then puts counters on it, then the additional token will also get those counters. Because it's a replacement effect, it's just modifying how that effect resolves. Pretty straightforward, but question comes up a lot.
All right, next up is Famished World Sire. For 5 green, we've got a 0/0 creature Leviathan. So it fails the vanilla test.
I think all cards do these days.
Right. So it's got Ward 3, okay, and then has Devour Land 3. We'll talk about that in just a second. And it says, when this creature enters, look at the top X cards of your library, where X is this creature's power. Put any number of land cards from among them onto the battlefield, tapped, then shuffle. But I said it's a 0/0. How's it get a toughness? How's it get a power greater than 0/0? Well, it's that Devour Land ability. All right. This is a variant of the Devour ability, which lets you sacrifice creatures. This lets you sacrifice land. So what the Devour ability, Devour N, and then by extension Devour Land N, means as this object enters, so it's as, which means it's a replacement effect, not a triggered ability. As this object enters, you may sacrifice any number of creatures or lands. This permanent enters with N +1/+1 counters on it for each creature, land, sacrificed this way. So if you sacrifice 3 land, this thing's going to get 9 +1/+1 counters. So that means you're going to look at the top 9 cards of your library and put any number of land cards from among them onto the battlefield tapped. Oh,
Feed me.
That's pretty spicy.
I love this card so much.
Yup. I mean, he's a big boy, but 8 mana, but woo.
That's kind of wild. Must be why it's a Leviathan.
Yeah. Does it get you excited? Does it leave you in a frenzy there, Charles?
It leaves me, you steal all my thunder, man. So we're going to talk about Frenzied Baloth. For 2 green, it is a 3/2 creature beast. And it has some lovely text. The text starts with, "This spell can't be countered." It also has trample and haste. It has creature spells you control can't be countered. Combat damage can't be prevented. Sounds like fun. This card is neat because it covers, a couple different things. It's very, very busy. First off, when creature spells you control can't be countered, that doesn't mean they can't be targeted by spells that would attempt to counter them. For example, Mana Drain won't counter the spell, but it will still give you mana on your next turn equal to the mana value of the spell targeted. The next line about how combat damage can't be prevented is also kind of cool. The ability only stops combat damage from being prevented by an effect that specifically uses the word prevent. The protection ability does prevent damage, so protection will be unable to prevent combat damage while Frenzied Baloth is on the battlefield. I like green, dumb creatures that are also bundled with fun stuff happening. I can't wait to play Frenzied Baloth.
Wait, that prevents... It messes with my protection? How dare you? That's it. I'm a go.
Mm-hmm.
I'm out. I'm a go. No, okay, I'm back. Next up is Genomorph Imago? I don't know what this...
I'm a go.
Words are all made up. I'm a go. There you go. Genomorph Imago. For green and a blue, this is a creature insect druid 1/3 with flying and landfall, which I don't think we mentioned it yet, but this set is very much a land set. How a space set is a land set? You got me, but hey, this set loves land. So plenty of landfall to be had here. For this ability, whenever a land you control enters, target creature has base power and toughness 3/3 until end of turn. If you control 6 or more lands, that creature has base power and toughness 6/6 until end of turn instead. So, the effect of the landfall triggered ability is actually going to overwrite any previous effects that set the creature's power and toughness to specific values. Effects that otherwise modify the target creature's power and toughness will still apply though. So if you cast a giant growth on it earlier in the turn, or it's enchanted by a dead weight, no matter when they took effect, it still will be in place. Same is true for any +1/+1 or -1/-1 counters that are on the creature. This is just working in the power and toughness layer that talks about setting the creature's power and toughness to a specific value.
All right. Next up, continuing with our theme of my cards being the working man's cards, we've got Ice Till Explorer. For 2 green, we've got a creature insect. I'm sorry. Did I say working man? I meant
working bug.
Working bug. Yeah.
The only good bug's a dead bug.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, it had to happen.
Yeah, it's fine. So yes, it's a 2/4 with one of my favorite words that can be favorite sentences that can be printed on a card. You may play an additional land on each of your turns. Then you may play lands from your graveyard. Then with landfall, whenever a land you control enters, mill a card. Oh, it's like that was it that Vince McMahon wrestling meme where it's just like every single sentence just gets better and better and better. Yep. All right, so let's talk how playing an additional effects that let you play an additional land on each of your turns work. Okay, this is cumulative with other stuff. So when you play, you're allowed to play 1 land per turn. So if I have an Ice Till Explorer out, I am allowed to play 2 land per turn. Okay, if let's say I've got all 4 possible Ice Till Explorers out, I can play 5 land per turn. Now, if one of those Ice Till Explorers dies, the total number of lands I can play is 4 now, right? And if I've already played my 4 land, then I cannot play a 5th, regardless of which Ice Till Explorer dies. So there is no like mapping, this land I play is the extra land from Ice Till Explorer A, and this land is from Ice Till Explorer B. Nope, you just sum them all up. How many lands can you play this turn? Great. Have you played less than that? Cool. Then you can play. You can keep playing land. Now, this card does not change the times that you can play a land. You can still only play lands during your main phase, when you have priority, and the stack is empty. All right? Now, when it says you can play lands from your graveyard, that means take them from the graveyard, put them on the battlefield. This does not mean that if you cycled away a Triome or something like that, you can recycle it from the graveyard. Okay, we're talking about playing lands, picking it up, putting it on the battlefield. And, yeah, that's it.
So I have a problem. I'm looking at this card.
Just one?
Yeah, just one. I mean, look, we're not going to get into the rest of it, but the one that I have right now, I'm looking at this next card, and I don't get it. The next card is Loading Zone. For 3 and a green, it's an enchantment. It has, if one or more counters would be put on a creature, spacecraft, or planet you control, twice that many of each of those kinds of counters are put on it instead, and it has Warp for 1 green mana. But I don't see any black and yellow diagonal stripes. I don't see any, yellow cement posts. I don't see any dollies or hand trucks. I'm a little confused. This does not strike me as a loading zone.
OSHA really fell off once you passed about Jupiter. They just stopped caring at that point.
That must be it. OSHA has a limited sphere of influence. Is that what you're saying? It makes sense.
Yeah,
exactly.
The card got doged.
Anyway, relevant talking points for loading zone include: if a creature, spacecraft, or planet you control would enter with a number of counters on it, it enters with twice that many instead, right? If you control 2 landing zones, then you apply each replacement effect to the number 1 at a time. First loading zone turns 1 counter into 2. A second loading zone turns 2 counters into 4. And if you have a third, it turns 4 counters into 8. This is because 2 or more effects that attempt to modify how many counters would be put onto a permanent you control, then you choose the order in which to apply those effects, regardless of who controls the sources. So, it multiplies, which is nice. Figure out how to get, 8 loading zones onto the battlefield and go to town, folks.
New set life goal.
Yep.
Love this. I resolved to do that. I resolved to put at least 4 of these onto the battlefield. 8 if I can manage it somehow.
Copy.
I'll call that Marcos's resolve. But Meltstrider's resolve is an enchantment aura for a single green mana that has the rules text enchant creature you control. When this aura enters, enchanted creature fights up to 1 target creature an opponent controls. Each deals damage equal to its power to the other. Enchanted creature gets +0/+2 and can't be blocked by more than 1 creature. So, this card is hilarious. If you enchant a creature with Menace, or give this creature that is enchanted by this resolve Menace, then when it attacks, it just straight up cannot be blocked. Can't be blocked by more than 1 creature and must be blocked by 2 or more creatures, creates a perfect attacking machine. It is beautiful.
Phenomena. Yes, this next card is Phenomena, the right hand.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. That's this card is going to be altered to be that.
Yep.
For 3 blue, we've got a legendary creature, Jellyfish Advisor. It's a 3/4 flying creature that says you may look at the top card of your library at any time. You may cast artifact spells from the top of your library, and artifacts you control have tap, add blue, spend this mana only to cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand. So now you can look at the top card of your library whenever this is like once per release notes episode. You can look at the top card of your library whenever you want, with an exception in just a moment we're going to go over. You don't have to have priority. It doesn't use an action. There's no in response, I'm going to look at the top card of my library. Just do it. There's no joke. Knowing the top card of the top card of your library is just simply information you have access to. Now, We said that there's a restriction. The restriction is if the top card of your library changes while you are casting a spell or activating an ability. Okay, until you're done casting that spell or activating that ability, you cannot look at the top card. Okay? So you don't get to look at it until you've gone through all the steps. All right? Now, if you cast an artifact spell from the top of your library, you got to pay all the costs and you got to follow all the timing restrictions for cards cast from the top of your library. This is just, it's like a card in your hand, although instead of being in your hand, it's on top of your library. You can do it, but you just got to follow all the rules. Now, that third ability that says you can cast artifact spells from the top of your library, keep in mind if you've got an artifact land up there, artifact lands are not cast, they are played. All right? This is only talking about artifact spells. Got it?
Got it.
We almost did that in Harmony. Might form harmonizer. I don't know. I tried. I tried to just.
I mean,
blend
all
it
Muppets are
together.
from space, right?
They are. This guy looks more Muppety than most. Might form harmonizer. Might form harmonizer. I hope he leaves all of that in there. 2 green
Absolutely.
is a 4/4 harmonizer is a 4/4 creature insect druid. It has landfall. Whenever a land you control enters, double the power of target creature you control until end of turn. And it has warp 2 and a green. So an effect instructs you to double a creature's power. That creature gets +X +O, where X is its power as the effect begins to apply. Same thing for doubling toughness if we were to double toughness. If a creature's power is less than 0 when it's doubled, instead that creature gets -X -O, where X is how much less than 0 its power is. So for example, if an effect has given Bear Cub -4 -0, so that it's a -2/2 creature, doubling its power as a -2/2 creature would make it a -4/2 creature. So it's, doubly useless. Sad.
Extremely sad. Although I'm psyched that Bear Cub got a shout out in the release notes.
Well, I think somebody knows about us. Somebody.
Yeah, and it is in standard, so it's a good example, I suppose.
It's a great example.
Yeah, I'm going to meditate on that for a little bit. With our next card, Moonlit Meditation, 2 and a blue for an enchantment aura with enchant artifact or creature you control. I keep getting all these auras. The first time you would create 1 or more tokens each turn, you may instead create that many tokens that are copies of enchanted permanent. Ooh, that's exciting. So this effect is going to apply before anything that modifies how those tokens enter the battlefield. The effect of Moonlit Meditation's last ability can apply to any token, not just an artifact or creature token. It could be an enchantment shard token. It could be a food token. It could be any token. This will allow you to make that token a copy of this enchanted permanent. Now, an important note though, if the enchanted permanent is legendary, we kind of touched on this earlier, the copies will also be legendary, which would be bad news bears if you have multiple legendary creatures with the same name, as the legend rule will apply and all but one will be put into their owner's graveyard. Another thing you might overlook when you first read through this text, if you choose not to apply the replacement effect, you won't get a chance to apply it again until the next turn, because it only applies to the first time you would create 1 or more tokens each turn. Really important note. I think I read this card 2 or 3 times before I actually really grokked that somehow. And in fact, if you created a token at the beginning of your turn and then you resolve a Moonlit Meditation, it's not going to work later on in the turn if you create more tokens, because the first time you created tokens already happened earlier in the turn. The game knows it. Sequencing is important, kids. Do your best.
That's just good advice. Just do your best.
Yeah.
All right. Continuing with cards for the working man, we've got Orbital Plunger. Favorite card of plumbers everywhere. Orbital Plunger is 3 and a red for a sorcery. Orbital Plunger deals 6 damage to target creature. Whew, that's some handle. If excess damage is dealt this way, create a lander token. All right. So excess damage is the damage dealt to a creature that exceeds lethal damage. All right. So for example, if a bear cub was being hit by orbital plunger, there would be 4 excess damage. If somehow you were able to give orbital plunger death touch, then it would be 5 excess damage. Usually that's not only that, but if our bear cub already had 1 damage marked on it from a previous encounter, a previous plunging, I guess, then my orbital plunger would deal 5 excess would be dealing 5 excess damage, which in this particular card doesn't matter because the excess damage doesn't do anything. It's just creates a lander token.
Poor bear cub gets
right?
no.
It's not like a lander token for each excess damage or anything, right?
No. But when else are we going to talk about excess
I don't
damage?
know why I made such a big deal out of how much extra damage was being done. Because it doesn't matter.
You're worried
You just
about the
get a
bear
lander.
cub.
What's that?
I mean, you're worried about the bear cub.
Yeah. Who wouldn't be worried about the bear cub?
Seriously.
So first we had, space set, then we had Marvel set, and now we have DC Universe set. I don't know.
It's a universe, that counts.
It is a universe. That must be why. And it is a quantum riddle, no less. So Quantum Riddler for 3 blue is a 4/6 creature Sphinx, because why not have a Sphinx in space? It has flying. It has when this creature enters, draw a card, and it has a replacement effect. The replacement effect reads, as long as you have 1 or fewer cards in hand, if you would draw 1 or more cards, you draw that many cards plus 1 instead. It also has warp for 1 and a blue because, that wasn't enough text on it already. We needed some more. So, if an effect requires you to draw 1 or more card, the replacement effect applies to the whole instruction, not just the individual draws. The example given is if you control Quantum Rider and cast Decode Transmissions, which has the relevant text, you draw 2 cards and lose 2 life. While you control no cards, you would draw 3 cards. So it would be draw the 2 cards from Decode Transmission plus the 1 from the replacement effect of Quantum Riddler. Okay. Buckle up. Here we go. Quantum Riddler's replacement effect applies to an instruction to draw more than 1 card before any other replacement effects apply to individual cards being drawn. This is important. Sometimes you get to put things in your own order with its replacement effects and it's affecting you. But in this case, this would happen first before other effects that work on individual cards being drawn.
There's a specific rule that talks about if you're replacing like a chunk of card draws with something, you apply that one before you apply any replacement effects to individual card draws.
Right. So for example, if you control Thought Reflection and enchantment with if you would draw a card, draw 2 cards instead, and you cast Decode Transmissions, which we already found out has you draw 2 cards and lose 2 life, while you have 1 or fewer other cards in your hand, you apply Quantum Riddler's replacement effect first, which changes draw 2 cards instruction to draw 3 cards, and then you apply Thought Reflection's replacement effect, which will apply to each of those 3 individual card draws, causing you to draw a total of 6 cards. Nifty. Once a replacement effect has been applied to an event, it can't be applied again to the newly modified event, so no double dipping. If Quantum Riddler's replacement effect has modified the draw 2 cards instruction of Decode Transmissions, Thought Reflection's replacement effect can double the resulting card draws without Quantum Riddler's replacement effect being applied again. This card's going to cause some amount of small confusion if people want to get tricksy with it, so just stay on top of how this all works.
I'm trying and I got nothing. I'm just looking.
Well, you
at
should
this
just give it to the working man's working man. Make him do it.
Sure, working man. You want to be a mechanic?
Yeah, I'm a self-made mechanic. You might even say I'm a self-craft mechan. For 3 and a blue, Self-Craft Mechan is a 3/4 artifact creature robot artificer. Yeah,
That means he
I'm gonna
makes
say
stuff.
that again. Yep. He's a Self-Craft Mechan is 3 and a blue for a 3/4 artifact creature robot artificer. When this creature here enters, you can sacrifice yourself one of them there artifacts. When you do, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature and draw a card. Whew. All right. So this right here is what's called a reflexive trigger. So when this creature enters, you may sacrifice an artifact. Okay, if you don't sacrifice an artifact, we stop right there. All right, but if you do sacrifice an artifact, we go into the second clause here, the reflexive trigger that says when you do, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature and draw a card. So yeah, you can respond. Each player can respond to each trigger. So when the self-craft mechans enter trigger goes on the stack, the opponent can do something in response. And if they don't, and you sacrifice a creature, then we're going to put the rest of the trigger on the stack, and the opponent can respond to that as well.
Excellent. I'm just going to dive straight into a black hole called Sathera, the Super Void. For 2 black, we have a legendary enchantment. Whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent chooses a creature they control and exiles it. At the beginning of your end step, if a player controls no creatures, sacrifice Sathera, then put a creature card exiled with it onto the battlefield under your control with 2 additional +1/+1 counters on it. Whew, that is a wild card. If Sathera somehow leaves the battlefield at the same time as one or more other creatures, it will trigger for each of those creatures. Sathera's last ability also will check as your end step starts. So if no player has no creatures, the trigger doesn't happen. So here we have our classic intervening if clause. If the condition is not true at the time the trigger would go on the stack, then it doesn't trigger at all, and you just keep going on with your day. But if that trigger condition is true when it would trigger, then it triggers and goes onto the stack. And if somehow after the trigger goes on the stack and the players with no creatures somehow gain creatures, it will then go poof and not resolve because it no longer meets the triggering condition of the intervening if clause. Exciting stuff.
You know what else is exciting?
What's that?
I don't know. I got nothing. You know what else is exciting? Starfield Vocalist is exciting. It's a 3/4 for 3 and a blue. It's a creature human bard that has, if a permanent entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers a second or an additional time. Not a second time, an additional time. And it has warp for 1 and a blue. You know, trigger. We like triggers that trigger the trigger. The wonderful thing about triggers is triggers are a wonderful thing. Tops are made out of rubber. The bottoms are made out of springs. Okay. Remember that triggered abilities start with when, whenever, and at. But for the purposes of this card and its abilities, you care about the when and the whenever triggers. Starfield Vocalist's first ability affects a permanent's own enters triggered abilities, as well as triggered abilities that trigger when that permanent enters the battlefield. Replacement effects are not triggers and won't be affected by Starfield Vocalist's first ability. Those are usually indicated by as this permanent enters text, or by text saying enters with something like a counter. So, enters with some counters or whatever. The first ability doesn't copy the triggered ability. It just causes the ability to trigger an additional time. Any choices you make as you put the ability on the stack, such as modes and targets, are made separately for each instance of the ability. Any choices made on resolution are also made individually. If you control 2 Starfield Vocalists, a permanent entering causes abilities to trigger 3 times, not 4. It's not how math works. It's 1 additional time for each Starfield Vocalist. It doesn't double like the previous example 2 or 3 or 4 cards ago. I've lost count. Starfield Vocalist also applies if a permanent enters the battlefield at the same time as Starfield Vocalist. It'll cause any trigger to trigger twice. So they both hit the battlefield at the same time. So Starfield Vocalist is there to actually see what's happening with the other critter. Is that what we call them now? We call them critters. Or any permanent, really. If a triggered ability is linked to a second ability, additional instances of that triggered ability are also linked to that second ability. If the second ability refers to the exiled card, it refers to all cards exiled by instances of the triggered ability. In some cases involving linked abilities, linked abilities, an ability requires information about the exiled card. When this happens, the ability will get multiple answers because there are multiple cards exiled with that linked ability. Oh, my head already hurts. For example, Elite Arcanist. You create copies of both cards and cast none, one, or both of the copies in any order.
Okay, so do you want to read our Elite Arcanist and then
we can do that.
Talk about how it relates back?
Well, we'll definitely read it. Elite Arcanist is a 1/1 creature human wizard for 3 and a blue, and it has when Elite Arcanist enters the battlefield, you may exile an instant card from your hand. So you would, well, let's see, let's puzzle it out. In some cases involving linked abilities, an ability requires information about the exile card. Right. So the exile card that's would be the instant that's exiled by Elite Arcanist. The ability will get multiple answers because there are multiple cards exiled with that linked ability. For example, Elite Arcanist, you create copies of both cards and create none.
So,
I got it.
With the situation,
I got it.
Oh, you get it?
I got it.
Okay,
I think cool. I got it.
Okay.
All right. So, we have this card, Elite Arcanist, which has the triggered ability when Elite Arcanist enters the battlefield, you may exile an instant card from your hand. But because of our friend Starfield Vocalist, we are triggering that a second time. So we're going to be able to exile 2 instant cards from our hand. So we would exile, let's say, instant card A and instant card B. And when it comes time to, let's see, call them back, because we can copy the exile card, you may cast the copy without paying its mana cost X. We can choose.
We've got two exile
cards,
so we can with the same ability.
Right. So we can choose to do one of them. We could choose to do both of them, or we could choose to do none of them. Easy, right?
Yep. All right. So the next card, and I can't say this in any voice other than the way Harrison Ford said it in that Indiana Jones movie, Tapestry Warden. 3 and a green for a 3/4 artifact creature robot soldier. It's got vigilance. Okay. And then, I'm going to read these sentences out loud. I'm going to go slow. Each creature you control with toughness greater than its power assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. Each creature you control with toughness greater than its power stations permanents using its toughness rather than its power. So, when this thing deals butt damage, provided that its butt is larger than its front. Okay, and then it can station. It can sit in them chairs real good to station your spacecrafts or permanents rather, because you can station some planets because sure, why not? Okay, so here's the thing to remember: Tapestry Warden's second and third abilities don't actually change the creature's power. It does change the damage dealt. Okay. It changes how many counters are put on a creature on a permanent with station when they're tapped to pay their station ability. When the station ability is put, all of the rules that affect and check power and toughness use the air quotes real values. This includes things like fighting. Okay, this is only assigning combat damage, and then when it stations permanents. All right. If a station's ability resolves while you control Tapestry Warden, but the creature tapped is no longer on the battlefield, we're going to check the characteristics of the creature as it last existed. Okay, so if it was a 1/3, we're going to use its 3 toughness to I don't want to say crew, to station permanents. All right.
Charge it up.
Yep. If you activate a station ability while you control Tapestry Warden, but Tapestry Warden is removed from the battlefield before the ability resolves, we're gonna use the actual power of the creature to put charge counters on. Sorry.
Oh, Captain, my Captain. It's taken this long, but finally we get to one of the captains of these spacecraft. And oh boy, is it a doozy. We have Tezzeret, Cruel Captain. For 3 generic mana, we have Legendary Planeswalker Tezzeret with 4 abilities. Has a static ability that says, whenever an artifact you control enters, put a loyalty counter on Tezzeret. Because of course he does. First loyalty ability for 0, untap target artifact or creature. If it's an artifact creature, put a +1/+1 counter on it. -3, search your library for an artifact card with mana value 1 or less, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. And -7, you get an emblem with, quote, at the beginning of combat on your turn, put 3 +1/+1 counters on target artifact you control. If it's not a creature, it becomes a 0/0 robot artifact creature, and it has 4 starting loyalty. Okay, so let's talk about that third ability. When you're searching your library for an artifact card with mana value 1 or less, X is 0 when that card is in the library. So if you're looking for a Walking Ballista that has a mana value or mana cost of XX, the mana value for that card is 0 and is totally searchable with Tezzeret's third ability. For the fourth ability, the emblem you get doesn't remove any abilities, types, or subtypes. If you somehow use the emblem on a vehicle, the 0/0 will overwrite the power and toughness on the vehicle. If you somehow crew the vehicle, it won't gain the printed power and toughness anymore because of how the layers work. The printed power and toughness is on the card. Then you activate this ability and give it a new power and toughness that's being set by the resolution of this ability. And that has a later timestamp than the power and toughness that is printed on the card.
I'm about to unravel. I'm just blown away by how cool Tezzeret is, and I just don't know what to do anymore. Unravel for 1 blue is an instant. Hey, wait, this is my first instant of the night, and we're almost to the end. I'm sad, but anyway, here we go. It's blue. Why do I get the blue cards? Unravel 1 blue for an instant. Counter target spell. If the amount of mana spent to cast that spell was less than its mana value, you draw a card. That's actually kind of nifty, really. A spell's mana value doesn't change if it was cast with Flashback or Fist of the Suns or some other random cost reducer. The reducer isn't what we're worried about here. We're worried about whether or not the amount of mana that was spent to cast it was less than its mana value. Like Void, maybe. Okay, that's Unravel.
All right. So the next up is Vote Out for 3 and a black. It's a sorcery with Convoke. It says destroy target creature. All right. The reminder text on Convoke says your creatures can help cast this spell. They just help. They're so helpful. Each creature you tap while casting the spell pays for 1 colorless or 1 mana of that creature's color. Okay, so Convoke applies after the total cost of a spell is calculated. So when we're doing the steps to casting a spell and we figure out how much a spell is cost, we add in all the increases, we subtract all the reducers, we take into account Trinisphere, okay, and we figure out what the total cost of the spell is going to be. Okay, Convoke does not change a spell's mana cost or mana value. What happens is when it comes time to pay the cost, you can tap the creature to pay for either 1 generic mana or 1 colored mana of the color of the creature that you tapped. All right. Now, a question that comes up occasionally with Convoke is, if I have a creature that taps for mana like a Llanowar Elf, can I use it for mana and then also convoke it? And the answer is no, because when you activate the mana abilities, tapping your Llanowar Elf before you tap creatures for convoke. So when it comes time to consider tapping creatures for convoke, that Llanowar Elf is already tapped. All right, makes sense.
Clear as mud.
Okay, let's go ahead and take this card. You go ahead and pronounce it.
I'll have to force my way through it because it's the last card for the evening. I'm gonna go with some sort of Klingon-y or maybe Reaver pronunciation. Yeah, that sounds about right. Maybe me. Yeah, that's the right pitch. Zulfit Osteoharmonist is a 2/3 legendary creature human wizard, 1 black with the ability tap, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It's a skeleton in addition to its other types and has no abilities. Activate only as a sorcery. So if a permanent is being returned to the battlefield and has some enters triggers, those abilities are going to be lost before it can trigger. This ability says it comes in and has no abilities, so they're gone before it even hits. If it has an ability to make it enter tapped, well, it'll lose that too, so yay. Same for all other things that are like as this enters replacement effects. The skeletons can also then gain abilities as normal because timestamps are a thing. Creature enters, had abilities on it, I assume, because every card nowadays has some abilities on it. And then this removed the abilities. And then you can then grant it an ability later on because timestamps are a wonderful thing. Is that it? Did we make it out?
Yeah, we made it to the other side of this. That's for certain. I just don't know what the other side is. It's like, you pass through the portal and you get to the other side and you're looking around and you're like, where did I end up?
I think it's just Matthew McConaughey floating in a library.
It could be, and that's a great reference. Speaking of references, one of the neat things about this set that was discussed this week in terms of, last 7 days for me, was the fact that this set doesn't do a lot of call outs to extremely well-known properties. We're not going to find hidden Star Wars references, Star Trek references, Babylon 5 references. I mean, there's a lot of things that are universal to space opera type settings. So we're going to get some of that feel, but they really did try to make this unique and its own property. And
they're saving them for the universe beyond.
Yeah, they're saving it for but looking through this really does have that feel of unexplored territory. And at the same time, I'm reading these cards and I'm trying to figure out how they're going to play. And I normally have a really good sense for that. And I'm looking at all these station cards and I'm wondering how slow this format is. And I have no idea, but it feels slow. It feels like it might be one of the more slower formats. But who knows? I try and engage. I engage mostly through limited, and I try and relate to it that way, and it just looks weird.
I assume it'll be slow because you can't actually reach the speed of light. You can just keep getting closer and closer, but never quite actually hitting it.
This is true.
I don't know. I'm such a space nerd in general. Like, astrophysics is actually a mild hobby / interest of mine, and this set just like makes me giggle with all the incredible artwork in it and just some of the cool references. And I'm sorry, the void mechanic is so flavorful. I cannot get over that.
Oh, I dig warp. I really do. I think it's neat.
Oh yeah, warp. I said void, didn't I?
You did say void, but void's a mechanic too. So I thought that you were happy for void, and I could be happy for
also,
warp.
yes,
And we could both have our own thing. But you have to make it all about me now, don't you?
Yeah.
Bryan, what do you think?
It's okay. Like, I kind of think saying the words station and spacecraft are stupid. Like, I mean,
I'm not a fan of the station mechanic, but that's a whole different story, and we'll see how it plays out.
Like, it's cool. The set is cool. The vibe is cool. It doesn't feel like Magic to me. Like, okay, there is a card in this set that is a robot corgi, a robot corgi. Okay. This is supposed to be the edge of the blind eternities where the Eldrazi live. It's like we're supposed to be thinking like, the blind eternities is that space crystal at the beginning of the Hellboy movie, right? There's eldritch horrors out there, and we've got robot corgis.
Well, I mean, if you're going to bring a dog companion with you, why would it not be a corgi?
Well, I'm just like, I'm saying the vibe is, the vibe doesn't fit.
There's a little bit of silliness incorporated.
Right, and we've got like planeswalkers who can travel between locations. Now, Tezzeret's probably the best choice for this kind of thing, but like people that are in like a medieval, a pseudo medieval setting suddenly go to, where you have like mechs and robot dogs and stuff like that. And then they go back home. Like, how do you explain that? It's a little immersion breaking. As a standalone product, it's fine. As it integrates with the rest of Magic, but that is a complaint that I've had about a lot of sets lately, and I have to get over it because Magic sure ain't taking advice from me.
I mean, I think that's a fair assessment, but also it kind of stinks that we have to deal with that because, like, it's not going to get any better once Spider-Man and Legend of or Avatar all shows up into Standard. So now you're going to have your outlaws, your Wild West outlaws going to space to combat Spider-Man and airbending around him.
It's basically Magic is now the card version of GURPS. Which, there's an old reference for you.
Yep, I got that one.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I think that's also where I don't like the immersion breaking. Like, if you're like Charles and you primarily just focus on one set at a time and don't try to cross the streams, it's actually kind of fun and lovely, and it can even be refreshing sometimes. But as soon as you start going into Constructed and I have to read a deck list that has Spider-Man and Cloud and an Eldrazi and a robot corgi, I'm wondering what deck you registered and also just going, all right, whatever.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it'll be interesting. We'll have to see.
Yeah.
I am excited for Avatar. Looking forward. I'm not sure about I'm not sure about Spidey, but I'm really excited for next year because I keep hearing people say the word Lorwyn over and over again, and I really, really, really was not around for the first time, and I'd love to plane hop to Lorwyn. Anyway, with that, I think that's pretty much everything for this evening. So that's our episode. And I have this thing here that I'm supposed to say, and I said it last time, so we're going to say it again because just imagine that we did a time warp and, we gravity slung around the nearest star, and we're going to ask you to join us next time as we talk about cakes and onions and complicated ogres. Does that ring any bells for anybody? Until then, you can send us an email.
Look, time's all relative.
Yes, it is. Until then, you can send us an email at judgecast@gmail.com. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on BlueSky at judgecast.bsky.social and on Twitter at JudgeCast. Don't forget to check out our show notes for these links and more, including our YouTube channel where you can find this podcast and our L1 Essentials series. While you're at it, hop onto our Discord server for judges new and old, fans, and anyone who supports the judging community. I'm Charles Feather, and I keep it fair.
I'm Marcos Sanchez, and I keep it fun.
I'm Bryan, and I'm stationing the spacecraft so you don't have to.